Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Andriy Shevchenko, and on behalf of the team of the Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform, I want to thank all the journalists who tell the truth about our fight for freedom. Today we're having a special event. We're having a briefing with the relatives of the Ukrainian prisoners of wars. We call today's press conference Christmas in Captivity. We will be talking about the Ukrainian prisoners of wars and the civil organizations who work on returning them homes. And I want to invite to the microphone Nora Storozhuk, a wife of a prisoner of war and a participant of a civil organizations, civilian soldiers release. Good afternoon, my name is Nora and I'm a wife of a prisoner of war. First of all, on behalf of the NGO Soldiers Release, whom I represent, and all the participants of our event, I want to thank you, the journalists, for your attention, for the work without which the return of our prisoners of war, of our relatives, would be way more complicated, way more difficult in all regards. We also want to thank all the people in Ukraine and outside of Ukraine who already helped and keep on helping us in our fight, in the work on liberation of our closed ones. As the darkness is afraid of light, the aggressor is afraid of the truth. As the world needs the truth, our relatives need our work, our support, our faith, and our common effort. We believe that using our effort, we will pull our closed ones from imprisonment. We will stand until our relatives, our closed ones, come back home. But we demand, and we will continue demanding, the soonest possible exchange of everybody for everybody. The NGO Soldiers Release is established by the relatives of the servicemen of the National Guard service. We cooperate with the ICRC, we cooperate with Ukrainian government, and just as our colleagues, we demand the truth and support, more support and more attention. Our women came to the Pope Francis I with the towel, with the traditional rushnik, Ukrainian towel, that we handed to the Pope, and Pope will receive that message from us shortly. In the advent of the year 2023, it's necessary to remind that Ukrainian army and all the Ukrainian people became the symbol of resilience, but also this year what's the biggest disappointment to us is the very weak and inefficient activity of some of the international organizations. We have to understand that something that used to work previously does not work now in the conditions that we are existing in now. I'm not talking about all the organizations, but I'm talking about the United Nations, IC and ICRC, and international security system should receive new resources and new authorities. I'm not talking about the people who work in those organizations. They do all they can. They take all the reasonable efforts, but I'm talking about the principles, the fundamentals their work with. They should be changed immediately. We hope that shortly we will have a broad session with the representatives of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. We will bring up the issue of the pressure on Moscow in terms of imprisonment of our prisoners of war and application of the international humanitarian law to the Russian Federation, and the soonest possible liberation of our prisoners of war. Availing myself of opportunity, I want to wish you and all of Ukraine victory, love, and to our closed ones strength, faith, and bravery, courage. Thank you for your attention. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to the heroes. Thank you, Nora. I want to draw the overall picture today. Russian Federation imprisons thousands of Ukrainian defenders. What we know about the conditions of their imprisonment says about the violation of the rules of war and a violation of international humanitarian law. And they keep civilians, even civilians, as prisoners. I want to invite Ilya Gonchar. He's the brother of a civilian prisoner. He's the member of Civilians in Captivity NGO. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you. My name is Ilya Gonchar, and I'm a representative of the NGO Civilians in Captivity. My brother is a civilian prisoner who is being imprisoned by Russian Federation more than 8 months. We created this organization to unite, to join our effort of the relatives of the civilians in captivity, and I represent more than 200 families who won't be able to see their closed ones on Christmas and New Year holidays because their closed ones, their relatives, were imprisoned by the servicemen of the occupational army. And now they are being held in captivity in Russia and in temporarily occupied areas of Ukraine. These orphaned families, they wait for their closed ones within the last couple of months, and they believe in the Christmas miracle just like nobody did. Our civilians who never held arms in their arms, the nurses, drivers, teachers, security guards, and businessmen, and even pensioners, people aged from 18 to 80 years, and even elder, not only Ukrainians, but also representatives of other countries who before the 24th of February lived and worked in Ukraine. They are now the hostages of the aggressor, and the people who were were defending their country within the last 8 years. But for the time of the beginning of the full-scale invasion, were civilians and lived a peaceful life. Now those people, they have chronic diseases and they need permanent medical support. Some of them need some psychological conditions, psychic conditions, mental conditions. Some of them were cruelly beaten and damaged by the Russian occupiers. They need normal medical support, normal medical aid, and normal conditions of life. But the aggressor does not take care about the condition of imprisonment. And whatever the families of the imprisoned ones do, the Russian Federation representatives do not let their closed ones, or even the representatives of the Red Cross, are not being allowed to visit them, let alone many families don't even know if their closed ones are still alive. The story of a civilian prisoner is unique, but they're all alike at the same time. The civilians like me and you, before the 24th of February, we were visiting our jobs, we were bringing our children to the kindergartens and schools, we were doing our everyday things. And after Russia invaded our country, all those people became its hostages, its victims. People were taken from the streets, from their homes, from their jobs. They were detained during evacuation. The story of every family, every civilian prisoner is on one hand unique, and on the other hand, they're all alike. From the very beginning, every one of us were fighting for their closed ones separately. We were addressing the government authorities. We were asking the help of the international humanitarian organizations, and then we started finding each other. We started finding our brothers in sorrow, whose civilian relatives were taken hostages, were imprisoned. So we started sharing information, we started supporting each other, we started praying and hoping that our closed ones are coming back soon. This is how our NGO was born. We are being held by the lawyers, the government, and international organizations cooperate with us on our level as the families of the civilian prisoners, and in fact the civilian hostages held by Russia. We did everything we could, but none of us sits with the hands in our pockets. We keep finding the ways to get our closed ones home. This is something that we think about as we get up and as we go to bed. We know that New Year and Christmas is the period of when the miracles happen. Yes, we grew up, but this year our children were writing letters to Saint Nicholas, and they were not asking for new gadgets or new toys. They were asking to return their uncle, their father, their grandmother, or their grandfather home. I don't know if Saint Nicholas reads those letters, but we want to talk to those who can hear us. Dear Jorge Mario Bergoglio, Pope Francis I, Tenzin Gyatso Dalai Lama, Patriarch of Constantinople Bartholomew, Archbishop of Canterbury Justin, and Epiphany, the great priest of Ukraine. We are the families of the civilian prisoners, and we ask you to assist in the return of our closed ones home, us and our children. We believe in the Christmas miracle. Help this miracle to happen. Thank you. Thank you, Ilya. I want to invite Iryna Latysh. Iryna is the wife of a Ukrainian prisoner of war of a 95th Air Assault Brigade. Miss Iryna, what do you know about the destiny of your husband? Good afternoon, my name is Iryna. I'm here today just like people who are stand behind my back. I will tell you that the sorrow is something that united us, and I will tell you about my sorrow today. It's not my personal sorrow, but it's the sorrow of all the Ukraine. Is the captivity of a closed one. I know that every one of us is extremely happy when our guys come back home. I know that we look at the pictures and in the videos trying to make out the faces. We are happy, and then we break out in tears because we don't receive that long-awaited call. I'm home, I'm coming back. Every day I thank the universe for keeping me alive. I learned how to pray. However, I still don't believe in God. My dear husband, on the very first day of war, voluntarily joined the 95th Air Assault Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. He took up the arms and he said that he will be loyal to Ukraine until the very end, until the very last centimeter of our land is liberated. He was preparing us that he would take up the arms way before the 24th of February. He told us that we should have been ready, and we knew it would happen. Today is 300 days straight as he has been imprisoned. For 300 days, he's a prisoner of war. He was imprisoned in Kiev region during the first days of the full-scale invasion. Since that very moment, I haven't talked to him a single time on the phone. I don't know what's going on with him. In the middle of April, his brothers in arms who were liberated, they told me that he is imprisoned. For a long time, we didn't know what's going on with him. We didn't know what happened to him. That was the only notice that we received from him, and those people were the only witnesses who saw him alive. I don't know if he's alive still. I don't know if he's in good health. Also, through the International Committee of Red Cross, we received a short letter, and we understand that everything was written as per the stencil. I'm good, I'm in good health, I'm alive. Keep waiting for me. Of course I will wait. I remember the last time he called me before his mission. He said, I will be out of touch, but I will get back to you no matter what. Just wait for me. And I was shocked, and I asked, just promise me it will be in 3 days. And he said, I cannot promise you, but I will call you back. Believe me, everything is gonna be all right. I text him every day. All his messengers are already blocked, so I created a Google Doc, which now lists more than 200 pages. I write him every morning, every day, no matter if we're nearby or we're in different places. He was texting me every day. He wished me good night and good morning. In the same way, I know that he feels my support, and he will read all these messages of mine as soon as he comes back. This is one of the numerous examples of the loyalty of the fighters who took up their arms for independence of Ukraine. The 95th Brigade was always an example. Since the beginning of the anti-terroristic operation, they imprisoned occupiers, and now they end up prisoners themselves. Within the 10 months of the full-scale invasion, more than 35 fighters from the 95th Brigade are prisoners of war. More than 50 are missing in action. However, those places are already deoccupied and their bodies are still not found, so we hope they're alive and they're imprisoned. And we will fight for every single man who was lost in Kamenka, Solighivka, Dovhenka, in Kharkiv region. The vast majority of our closed ones ended up imprisoned in the beginning of April. Within the last 9 months, no representative of the 95th Brigade was exchanged. After the closed ones, after their relatives were meeting in the coordination agencies, only 3 persons were exchanged. Within the 10 months of the full-scale invasion, no more than 3 were exchanged. It's 0.2% of all those who were exchanged and returned home. On the list of the 95th Brigade, there are heavily injured, heavily wounded, with concussions who require returning home. And since the relevant institution tell us to keep our hope, to keep our faith, and they promise that all of the prisoners of war will come back home sooner or later. Their parents die, their children are being born and are growing. Some of them don't have homes which burned after one of the missile strikes. We know about the negotiations of the supplies of the ammonium from Russia to Asian countries through Ukraine. I call all the international institutions to find solutions for exchange and liberation, and exchange everybody for everybody. First of all, we receive our prisoners of war home, and then the Russian ammonium goes to the fields. Iryna Latysh, wife of a prisoner of war, representative of the 95th Air Assault Brigade. Svitlana Bohdanenko, wife of a prisoner of war, military medic from Mariupol. Good afternoon. We came back here for help because for the 9 months the military medics are in Russian captivity. The war is going on for 9 months. It's the month 11 of the full-scale invasion. However, until now, there are still problems with the prisoners of war and missing in action. There is a number of agencies established who have to solve this complicated issue. However, there is no cooperation with the existing enforcement agencies on the legislative level. We call for international organizations to get engaged in this important problem. We need to sort out all the issues connected to the confirmation of the status of our prisoners of war. We need to have... I apologize, I'm a little bit agitated. We need to get involved in supporting the families in finding the ways to get in touch with their closed ones, because many relatives, they don't have a single notice from their closed ones at all. The way should be simple and transparent, so that on every step we understand what is being done and how the situation will evolve. Now the situation is such that no agency wants to take responsibility. Our written addresses don't receive written responses. We are being responded orally, so that no one takes responsibility for current situation. A very important issue for us is the list of non-combatants. The medics are non-combatants. Unfortunately, the occupiers, the aggressor state, keeps many military medics imprisoned. However, those medics, they were never taking up the arms, save for a tourniquet or a syringe. They were saving lives. So we appeal to all the international organizations to help us to return the medics. So we beg them to help us bring back the medics home to their families. They were in hell. They're all from Mariupol, but they were saving lives there. They're not only military medics, they are civilian medics, civilian doctors who are still imprisoned. We beg you, please help us liberate the medics. We demand the International Committee of Red Cross and United Nations to publicly disclose the war crimes of Russia. We ask the government to support us in our appeals to international courts, because such crimes should entail responsibility, should entail liability, and we appreciate the hard work of all the international organizations and government agencies who are involved in returning our prisoners home. Thanks to their hard work, many of the prisoners already came back home, and we have a hope that all the rest will come back home too, but there are problems that we have still to solve, and we can help you in that no one is left behind in Russian hell after the victory. And in the same way, our medics should not be left behind there. They helped our guys, our warriors, our hawks, and now it's our responsibility to help our doctors, our medics. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. Thank you, Nataliya Lukovska, wife of a prisoner of war, representatives of Always Loyal NGO. Good afternoon. My name is Natalia. During today's event, I will represent the members of Always Loyal NGO, who united the families of the Marines who were imprisoned during operations in Azovstal, Shirokino, Vodyane, and Ilyicha industrial complex. Within the 9 months, the Marines suffered the psychological pressure and cruel tortures on a daily basis. So the main task of our organization is to deliver the information about the importance of return, of liberation of our Marines, of the defenders. That's why we appeal to the partner countries with asking them to influence the international organizations who are responsible for return of our prisoners of war to ICRC, which is documented in the Geneva Convention. It's important not to forget our defenders, but also to use the public space to deliver the important information to the society, to use all the methods of influence which can help change the situation with the Ukrainian prisoners of war. Christmas is a great holiday that we used to celebrate with our families before, and now it's just another reason to remind about the courageous Ukrainian people who are entrapped by the enemy. Ukrainian families wait for the miracles this Christmas. They wait for our prisoners of war to come back home. Thank you for your attention, and glory to Ukraine. Glory to the heroes, Natalya Kravtsova, Women of Steel NGO, good afternoon. Our organization is called the Council of Mothers and Wives of the Defenders of Ukraine, Women of Steel. A lot of words were said, a lot of right words were said here, so I will not repeat everything. I will say something different. Today, in existing realities, when the challenges of preserving of everyday life and these days when Ukraine fights for independence in these difficult conditions, society is not almost is not concerned with the destinies of those who are imprisoned due to a number of reasons. This subject was emotionally difficult and not so popular to a number of reasons, and now thousands of the families in Ukraine live in their personal hell without having any information as to the destiny of their closed ones who took up the arms to defend Ukraine and ended up imprisoned or were missing in action. We, as the closed ones, we exist in these conditions, hoping on God, we trust in armed forces, we trust in United Nations, and we hope for a miracle to happen. We're the closed ones of the Azov, who were defending Mariupol and who left Azovstal upon the order. We see that now there is a notion exchange in the information change. Fortunately, we started exchanges recently. They are quite intense lately, and our defenders are coming back home. And we want to thank everybody for their titanic job, their titanic work. And the positive is the fact that the defenders of Azovstal are also being exchanged, maybe not in big numbers, but at least one by one. But there are no fighters of Azov regiment in their ranks. Within the last month, no single person. Now there is an opinion in the society that the story of Azovstal is over. All the Azov fighters are back, or only them are coming back home. That's not true, because now more than 700 fighters of Azov are still imprisoned by Russia. It's month 8 of their imprisonment. I want everybody to remember this number. 700 fighters of Azov for 8 months are imprisoned. But we know that they were in avant-garde of Mariupol garrison, who were defending Ukraine in Mariupol without ammunition supply, without option for evacuation. However, they were repelling the enemy attacks courageously and in a noble manner. Together with the regional defense forces, police patrol, Marines, National Guard of Ukraine and other military units, they gave Ukraine time and opportunity to receive Western arms, to create reserves for further military operations. They were the ones who saved the world and all of us. And I want, when we make a New Year toast, that all the Ukrainians make a wish that all the prisoners of war, our men, our sons, our wives, sisters, our children, and our fathers, our parents who were defending Ukraine, so that they come home. I want everybody to know that our fight for them is not over until everyone, every prisoner, either military or civilian, comes back home. Our fight helps Ukrainians who are being held in captivity to go through hunger, freezing temperatures and tortures, and through thousands of kilometers they feel our warmth, our attention, our love that we aspire to deliver to everybody. And this is what differs us from Russians. We love our defenders and they love us. And this is the faith that gives us the strength to carry on, to live on, and this is what lets them live on. They love us because they stepped into fire for us, and we have to do everything we can to bring them back home. Now is the holiday season, and for me personally, the biggest present would be for my son to come back home. And I'm confident that this dream is the dream of thousands of people who dream about the same thing. And I want to appreciate the efforts of everybody who gives us this opportunity to celebrate Christmas and New Year. God bless and God save all the defenders of Ukraine. Thank you. And glory to Ukraine. Allah Shershin, Ukrinform. In the beginning of December, it became known that the representatives of ICRC eventually visited Ukrainian prisoners of war. Did everybody communicate with the representatives of the ICRC? And does anybody know which places were visited by representatives of the ICRC? Does anybody? Yes, really. ICRC said they visited. If there are any more questions in the studio, please let us know. May I continue? Yeah, we can continue. So yes, the Red Cross visited a number of colonies, but the warm clothing and the medicines were only handed to 120 fighters. 2,500 servicemen were exiting the Azovstal, and 120 persons who were visited. I cannot say it's some very big achievement because we're waiting for a long time. It's been 9 months and it's only 120 persons out of 20,000. Here in Media Center, I can add, we had a Ukrainian Commissioner for Human Rights, Mr. Lubinets, who confirmed the fact of the meeting between the prisoners of war and ICRC without details. If there are no questions in the studio, I will have a question. From what you find out, from what you're hearing, what can you say about the conditions of detainment of the Ukrainian prisoners of war? I want to say that in the beginning, maybe about half a year ago, we were assured by our agencies that medics are not being tortured, like they were trying to calm us down. They were assuring us that everything is okay. They were saying they're medics, they were never holding up the arms, so they don't suffer any tortures. So but now when medics started coming back from imprisonment, they were saying quite different things. They were being tortured in the same way as the other prisoners of war. So you understand, people who were saving lives, they suffer even worse tortures. I know that there were cases. It's the confirmed information. When a medic who is currently imprisoned was imprisoned absolutely healthy, now he is absolutely disabled. And he is not being given back, he is not being exchanged. Anybody has anything to add? Yes, I can add from the brothers who in arms who came back home, whom I was in touch with, who saw Yevgen imprisoned. They informed me that back in April they were transported from Kursk region to Sevastopol. There should have been some big exchange, about 100 people, but something went wrong, so they broke down that exchange in a couple of trenches, so to say. And why Evgen was not added to that exchange list? Because he had fresh bruises, he had fresh hematomes, so Russians decided not to exchange him because it was evident that he was not just sitting in the cell, but he was beaten, he was tortured. And about his further destiny, where he was transported from Sevastopol, I have no idea. And I want to add that those Ukrainian prisoners of war who were in Olenivka and Taganrog, so they are the defenders of Mariupol garrison. They are being released from imprisonment, and they lose weight from 40 to 60 kilograms of weight. One of the recent cases that we documented, one of the guys was exchanged and he lost about 80 kilograms of weight. So I think that no more explanations are needed. We heard the statistics from Miss Iryna regarding the 95th Brigade. You represented different civil organizations. Do you have some overall picture? What's the number of prisoners of war held by Russian Federation? 10,000. Can you please talk into the microphone? The official information is not being given to us, but the calculations that we voiced is something that the information that I could gather talking to the relatives, collecting information myself. I think that the official figures are different, but the military unit does not give the overall information, at least to the relatives. So I think that this question is more to the coordination staff, to the Central Intelligence Department. We can give you just some approximate numbers, and those are our figures that we calculate by ourselves. But based on our information, it's about 10,000 military prisoners of war, but there are also civilians. Any more questions in the studio? Okay, we were talking about the international organizations, and what we're hearing from the United Nations and the Red Cross, they say that specifically in the case of Russian Federation, the standard protocols of work on international organizations, they just don't function, and what was given some results in other conflicts, there is no same result in this conflict. So what impedes the normal process? What do you know about that? May I? I'm always being told, like, wait, where we cannot influence them. The Russian side, the aggressor, they don't give information. They provide no information at all and no exchange, and that's it. And I just want to know that they tell us that they cannot, they're not being let in. You are the organizations which work, it's your not conflict. It's not the first armed aggression. If it doesn't work, so the whole world, Ukraine will support it, every country will support it. Now every country is afraid they would be attacked. If your mandate doesn't work, we have to make up something that would work. You have possibilities, you have resources, you have knowledge and experience, so you have to work on that. Regarding the civil hostages, civil prisoners, what Red Cross tells us, that the civilians and the prisons in the Russian Federation and temporarily occupied territories, Red Cross is not being led there. This is what they tell us to the relatives of the civilian prisoners. What our government says, the coordination stuff, they say that everybody's on the list for exchange, both military prisoners of war and civilian hostages. But if we take approximately 10 months of the full-scale invasion, the number of the civilians returned is, I think, maybe up to 10 persons max, and one of them returned without a leg. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to live with this knowledge. The hostages are not being given back. They just detain them. I don't know for what reason. Thank you. I want to add about the medics. When we asked such a question, Unfortunately, the response is informal. They say, please wait, we don't have anybody to exchange medics for. We don't. So our government, our country does not have medics. First of all, they were saying, like some organizations, officer per officer, medic per medic. But excuse me, where do we get this number of medics? If Mariupol, where a large number of medics were taken hostages, and both military and civil, so whom should we exchange them for? So the response was like, you just wait, we will bring them back in the end of the war after the victory. But some of them will not be able to, some of us will not be able to wait for their brothers, for their fathers, for their sons. So that's the response we're getting. Just wait after the war. So medics have nobody to be exchanged for. Everybody postpones the medics for later, but when this later will come, when I will get a notice that I'm a widow, is this how it goes? Thank you. During the previous exchanges, Turkish President Erdogan played the role of a mediator. Do you have any idea who could act as a mediator, who could help in such negotiations? You mentioned the international organizations, religious leaders. Do you see any more ways what can be done in these situations? Yes, I could be, I think that a third country could become a mediator, like Turkey, like Turkey President Mr. Erdogan. They could undertake responsibilities to locate the both military and civil prisoners of war, so that they don't have an option of getting back to Ukraine, for example, at the end of the war. For me, as a relative of a civilian prisoners of war, I think that the other families of other civilian prisoners of war, everybody will agree to that. If they will be brought to such a fostering country, it can be whatever, a dormitory, but so that they have a connection, they are in touch with their closed ones, to their families, to their fathers, to their wives or husbands, just normal conditions of life, and they getting in touch with their families. I would also like to add that this third country is a country which should be agreed for by the aggressor country, the one who detains our prisoners of war. To wrap it up, on behalf of all the team of Ukrainian Media Center of Ukrinform, I want to thank you for your courage and for the deed of your closed ones that they were doing on a daily basis. Our dream is the same that yours, so you could hug them shortly, and here in Media Center you could tell about their deed. Nora Storozhuk, Soldiers Release NGO, Iryna Latysh, wife of a prisoners of war of a 95th Air Assault Brigade, Svitlana Bohdanenko, representative of the military medics, Natalya Kravtsova, Women of Steel, Nataliya Lukovska, Always Loyal NGO, Ilya Gonchar, Civilians in Captivity NGO. Follow our announcements, stand with Ukraine.